Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. My name is Daniel and joining me today is Shahbaz.
Hello.
And Anthony.
Hi there.
How you guys doing today?
You know, I'm recovering. I'm recovering from what we just watched.
It was something, wasn't it?
It was I felt transported. And I mean, I know it was early in the morning and I haven't had much sleep, but I felt transported.
It definitely was a brain scramble of a film, so I'm really excited to talk about. Of course, the movie we are talking about today is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Before we get to that, as always, I just want to remind you that you can catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday. And watch out throughout the week for our review episodes just like this one and all the latest movies and series. Make sure to follow us at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, join our Discord, and write into the show at hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca. Now, I did want to give a special shout out to the incredible work Anthony has been doing on YouTube, building up our channel. It's funny because you could go back all the way to like mid 2018 and see kind of where we started and where we are now on the show in the This Time With days, and now we are the Movie Podcast. So I just wanted to say thank you to Anthony for sprucing that up and getting us back on the YouTubes.
I don't want to thank him.
I'll thank him for the both of us.
I want to say I love you, man. Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you for doing what you did. And I doubted you and I never respected you. And I still don't.
Yeah. But now you're doing stuff on YouTube for us.
No, I'm just kidding. No, thank you. It honestly, like I think you found something that was like, hey, this is an area that we can really improve on, and you killed it.
Thank you. I didn't expect the
special shout out?
The special
You didn't expect a love this morning?
No.
It's completely opposite. That's,
It's so foreign to him.
Anthony's mind is also still recovering from the movie that we just watched.
Yes.
Anthony, I never got to hear how you were doing though. Are you doing okay?
Oh, that's okay. I'm doing well.
That's good. Man, a few words, but just always delivers.
But this time he said he's doing well. Usually he says, good. So
this is better, right?
I looked up good in the thesaurus, and well was underneath it. So
I feel like that's not right.
Did you need a thesaurus to find that? Though?
Did you not know the word well before this?
Well, I was looking for unique words to substitute good, but well
was there. It was another 4-letter word. We're just going to stick with that one. Some quick announcements before we get to our review. I just want to remind you that we have some incredible episodes out on the Movie Podcast feed right now that you could listen to. If you want to hear our review of Turning Red or The Batman, you could do that. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper and you want to hear about the making of the film Red, you could go and listen to our interview with the director, the producer, and one of the stars right now. Go listen to it. It's worth the time, I promise you. If you also want to hear our spoiler-filled discussion on The Batman, that episode is also out on the Movie Podcast feed. Another episode that I want to give some love before we get into our review is for the movie X, which is going to be coming out on March 18th in theaters. This is another A24 film that we got to watch this week, so Anthony and I reviewed this one earlier in the week. Definitely go give that review some love because it's a very, very cool movie. But speaking of cool movies, we're reviewing another one. The film we're talking about today is Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is directed by the directing duo of Daniels, Daniel Quan and Daniel Scheinert, and stars Michelle Yeoh. Thank you to our friends at Elevation Pictures for inviting us to watch this film. Anthony, I'm going to get you to tell us what it's all about.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is a hilarious and big-hearted sci-fi action adventure about an exhausted Chinese American woman, played by Michelle Yeoh, who can't seem to finish her taxes.
What's so interesting about this synopsis is that it tells you so little visually of what you are in for with this movie and just the road that you're going to go for. Shay, tell us about your expectations going into this film and then give us your first reaction.
When this trailer came out a few months ago, we all loved the trailer. We thought it was so visually cool. It was so interesting, and it had a great cast in it, and obviously it's A24 as well. But I still didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what the movie was about. I just knew that it was going to be some sort of a visual ride, and I was right. It's such a hard film to explain, and such a hard movie to kind of break down, but there's a beauty in this film. There's a love language in this film that you're kind of seeing reciprocated amongst everybody that's in this movie. It's about family. It's about acceptance. There's so much in this movie that I'm sure repeat viewings will help unlock my other multiverse individual.
Your third googly eye.
My third googly eye here.
Yeah.
But this movie is so much about it that I absolutely loved. I loved how it looked visually, but I loved the most how it made me feel. And movies that can leave an impact like that longer than they should, this is one of those kind of films. It leaves you with just a great feeling. And that is something that I'm going to be thinking about for a very, very long time. I had a lot of fun. It was really funny. And overall, it was just such an experience. And it's one of those movies that you don't think needs to be a theater movie, but after you kind of watch it, you're like, nah, man, like when you watch this movie in a theater, it's such a fun time.
This movie is definitely an experience, and it's a film also that the plot, like you said, Shay, like it's so hard to explain what this movie is, and you really can't, because this movie is just told so much through visual storytelling that this movie relies on its themes, it relies on its visuals, it relies on its emotions to really convey what this movie is all about. And I think this is also the type of movie that you're either going to be on board for it or you're not going to like kind of be on that ride. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think you're either kind of all in or you're not about
everything
it.
Everywhere all at once, or you're nothing.
Or you're nothing. Yeah. So I feel like that this is that type of movie. I loved it. We're going to talk more about it, but Anthony, I want you to jump in here.
Yeah, I thought the movie was really good. I didn't expect it to go down the road it did. Again, watching the trailer for 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I knew this story was going to be about a multiverse thing, and Michelle Yeoh's character is being divided or interacting with other versions of herself, and I was intrigued at that point. But then seeing more of this trailer, I'm like, there's kung fu and there's martial arts, all these amazing things that encompass her character. So I'm like, I'm totally on board. I didn't know it was going to be this funny. I think out of three of us, Shay was laughing the most.
I was giggling.
We were crying throughout.
Giggling. There are really funny moments in this movie. The Daniels and their imagination and just telling the story and just going above and beyond of what you would expect this movie to be. At times, it really felt like a Rick and Morty episode, just in terms of the universal aspect of different versions of ourselves or multiple versions of ourselves throughout the universe and different types of universes out there. Did a fantastic job. I did find it a little long at certain points, and sometimes it got a little bit too good for itself in terms of the storytelling.
What do you mean by too good for itself?
Maybe it became,
was it self-indulgent?
Too much of the imagination being
got you,
being there. But other than that, like, I thought this was a fantastic film. 824 did a really good job producing this. Like, this is a story that I can't if you were an executive producer on this or a company that's going to look at the script, how do you even comprehend what you've watched? And they went with it, and I think they did a fantastic job. But at the end of it all, it's like, I think we were talking about it, it's all about acceptance. And it's funny because this is coming out during another movie who's dealing with acceptance, which is Turning Red. This is also another film that's dealing with acceptance, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
it's crazy to think, and you mentioned, like, I'm curious to think, like, what did this movie look like on a script? Because so much of this film is just this visual insanity that's happening throughout, cracking between different multiverses. Like, this is like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on acid. Mm-hmm. And like, that movie's already going to be a trip, but this movie was just wild to watch, and it was just so fun. Like, this is legit one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. Just the way things kind of jump into one another and accessing the different multiverses and the powers that she has. Like, it's so cool seeing all of that. And it's funny because like when you're looking at the directors of this, the two Daniels, or the Daniels, they come from a music video background. If the music video for Turn Down for What comes to mind. They did that, and I think that was such an iconic music video 5 or 6 years ago. Whenever, oh my god, 2013.
So much longer.
10 years ago, almost crazy.
9 years now.
9 years now. But, they definitely have a distinct style. And I think Michelle Yeoh is so great in this film. Also, Jonathan K. Kwan is awesome. And it's so fun seeing him because, we really haven't seen him in anything in a really long time. The last thing that I remember seeing him in is literally, The Goonies or Indiana Jones when he was a kid. And seeing him in this, he gives such a strong performance, as does Stephanie Sue, who's plays Michelle Yeoh's and Jonathan's daughter in this, who is, again, it's so hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it. You can't, you could, it's hard. Can you spoil this movie?
I don't think you can.
It won't make sense.
I would say, me saying it's about acceptance is a spoil, but that's not a spoil.
It really doesn't make sense.
I think there are spoilers in the sense of the gags that occur and some of the more crazy moments.
The moments, yes.
That's why I don't want to talk about those, because I want people to go in just not knowing anything and then being like, whoa. So you're right, Daniel. This is one of those movies that you're either going to be totally on board for, or you're going to be like, no, never again am I doing this. Now, I've never seen Swiss Army Man, but I've heard that that's also one of those films that's the exact same way, where you're either on board for the idea of what this movie is supposed to be, because on paper it sounds ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, or you're gonna be like, yeah, this is totally for me.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me about Sorry to Bother You, the Keith movie, where just there's this weird otherworldly nature to it and the way it's telling its story, and this movie relies on a lot of that, and there's some absolutely out there multiverses that they travel to, but everything seems to mesh, and you're really not going to get the full story of this movie until you get to the end, really. I think that's where the payoff for everything is. And we were kind of talking as we were leaving, we're like, what was the plot of this movie? And it just it's literally everything everywhere all at once, but when you get to that ending, when you get to the payoff, I think everything does click in with one another.
It tries to neatly wrap itself up, and I think it does a pretty good job of that. I think while the ending for me kind of drags on a little bit in terms of pacing, it doesn't take away still from the stellar film I just watched.
Yeah, so this movie is 139 minutes long, so it definitely you definitely do
What's
feel...
that in the metric conversion?
Was it 2 hours and 19 minutes? So
it's 2 hours 12, 2 hours and 19.
Yeah. So it's you're 2 hours and 19 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're definitely, you'd feel the length a little bit, but I think because it is such a ride, by the end of it, you're like, that was really
you are
cool.
a little fatigued. I will say that, because there are visuals out there that are just repeatedly thrown in your face, and it could tire, it will tire you. You're so stimulated in terms of there's a sequence in there,
sensory overload for sure.
Your eyes are blinking so quickly to just understand what's happening, and then it would go into a slow point where you're reading these subtitles and you're just like, I just went through all this information and now I'm just being calmed down and then I'm being risen up again. It's just it's very much like a roller coaster.
It reminded me of that sequence in Thor Ragnarok where he's going through the Willy Wonka ride through everything about on the Sakaar, and he's going so fast and it just cuts to him just being still yelling in his chair. That's kind of what it reminded me of, where we're just going through this insane overload, then it just cuts to something so simple or quiet, and you're like, whoa, okay, hold on, let me breathe for a second and understand what's happening. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, but it's so interesting where we are now with these multiversal tales. This is kind of the new that new, I guess, fad in Hollywood right now, where we're just getting a bunch of different universes and traveling to them, and it's cool seeing it. It's cool seeing it realized, and it's cool seeing how different films are utilizing it. And again, with a film like this, I don't think there will be any film that looks like this year, in the sense of just how it's jumping in between the different worlds or telling its story. Visually, I think this film is going to be one of the most unique looking films of all of 2022.
It's also nice to see Michelle Yeoh being in her own film. And I know that sounds strange, but I haven't seen her in her own movie and play her own character for so long. Usually she's a supporting actress with a bigger cast, but this is like she owns up to this character and she owns up to this role. I think she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Just killing it, and probably like again reading the script saying, "You want me to do what?
And what am I doing now? And
who am I?
And what am I fighting? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Michelle, like that's a great point you brought up, Anthony, because Michelle Yeoh, for I think so long, has been such a strong supporting actress in a lot of the most recent films that we've seen her in.
Yeah,
and it's awesome to see her just kick so much ass in the lead role. Any final thoughts on Everything Everywhere All at Once before we get to our final recommendations?
I don't even know what to say.
It was really nice to see Ki-Hugh or Jonathan come back. Like he's a big part of my childhood, and it's just nice to see him in a role, because I know he kind of stepped away from acting to become like a stunt coordinator and action director of sorts. So it was nice to see him, and there is little homages to his previous characters in his other movies as a kid. So I kind of like picked up on those, and it's just nice to see him act. Hopefully he'll continue doing more roles in the future. Yeah,
and hasn't missed a beat either, because he gave such a strong performance in this film, as did everyone in this film, which was fantastic. Even the smaller supporting roles that we see, like I think of like Jenny Slate's was so great in this film, and Jamie Lee Curtis as well was fantastic. I did want to say thank you to our friends at Elevation Pictures for inviting us to watch this film. Shay, start us off with your final recommendations for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I think if you've heard so far everything that we've said, you're either going to be on board with this movie, or you're going to be like, no thanks, I'm okay. But in my opinion, I think this is a watch it. It's so much fun. It is absolutely hilarious, and it's so different from anything you've ever seen that you're going to be talking about it. Good or bad, you're going to be talking about this movie. So I definitely think it's a watch it.
Anthony, how about yourself?
I would say it's a definite watch it. And, you might go into this movie saying, whoa, or coming out of this movie saying, whoa, that, Anthony's opinion really mattered. Like that made sense. Like, I definitely like it. And then you might come out of it saying, you know what, that movie is not for me. And that's okay. But I still think you should experience a movie like this, because you haven't experienced a movie like this. And I don't think you've ever experienced a movie like this. So I think it's an experience that everyone should be a part of.
That they should experience.
Oh, what?
You said experience like 100 times.
I know. Sorry, my multiverse person is coming out of me.
Oh, who's that guy?
Spoleto.
Damn.
For myself, yes, it's a watch it. This is one of the coolest films that I've seen ever, and I think visually this is going to be one of the most unique and standout films this year. I think right now for myself, I'm like again, I know it's only March, but I'm like, this is like, it's like the Batman, and then it's this for me in terms of like my favorite movies this year. So I'm curious to see where that's going to be at the end of the year. But absolutely love this movie. Go watch it. Go on the ride. Like Anthony said, this is something you have to experience, and just strap in, because it's going to be a bumpy ride for sure. that was a Prisoner of Azkaban reference.
Little Harry Potter reference.
Yeah, a little Harry Potter reference for you. Thank you so much for listening to the Movie Podcast review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Don't forget, you could catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday, and watch out throughout the week for our review episodes just like this one on all the latest movies and series. Be sure to follow us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, join our Discord, and write into the show at
hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca.
Also, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, youtube.com/TheMoviePodcast. We're doing some great things there. You won't want to miss it. And that was this time with The Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.